Welcome back. You're still watching Network Africa on Channels Television. South Africa's High Court has denied the government leave to appeal against a court ruling that it should have arrested the Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir during a recent visit. The government allowed President Bashir to leave the country on June 15th despite a court order blocking his departure, arguing that he had immunity from arrest during his visit to the country for an African Union summit. President Bashir is wanted by the International Criminal Court for alleged war crimes related to the conflict in the Darfur region of Sudan. The government maintained that its obligation to the African Union, which included granting immunity to attending heads of state, trumped the laws of the ICC. But the High Court rejected the government's bid to appeal the ruling that it had a legal duty to arrest the Sudanese president. Well, in order to get a better understanding of whether South Africa is in the right or in the wrong, we go live to right here in Lagos, where former ICC prosecutor Dr. Charles Adeogun Phillips is standing by. Dr. Adeogun Phillips, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Is it valid to say that the immunity which was enjoyed by other leaders who attended the AU summit should have not been enjoyed by President Bashir?
Well, I think the dilemma faced in South Africa was having to choose between two diametrically opposed duties. The first is the obligation to the ICC, being a state party, to arrest President Bashir, having had an arrest warrant issued against him. And the second obligation was that of being a member state of the African Union to follow and support the resolution of the African Union in 2013, that of non-cooperation with the ICC in relation to immunities of sitting heads of state. I think essentially those were the two options open to the South African government that it had to choose from.
Now, I know it's not possible, but right now, what kind of consequences are we looking at for South Africa if things don't play out, in its favor as regards this case?
Well, the primary issue here is, did South Africa, or does South Africa have a right to promise a member of the AU, such as the head of state of Sudan, a right of free passage during AU-sponsored summits? Now, like I said, the option would have been to honor its obligation under the ICC treaty on one hand, and to honor its what we call a host country agreement, which South Africa would have signed with the AU to offer safe passage for African leaders to attend the summit. In terms of the consequences, well, the issue is that South Africa is a member of the ICC. It's a party to the Rome Statute and has obligations under that statute. But on the other hand, it has diplomatic obligations, both under established conventions, international conventions that guarantee immunity, diplomatic immunity to heads of state, serving leaders, and also based on certain resolutions that have been reached by the AU itself. So it's caught right in the middle, as it were.
Now, in hindsight, what do you think would have actually unfolded if South Africa did choose to follow the ICC, actually chose to turn over or hand over President Bashir to the ICC? How do you think that would have played out if it made that choice during the AU summit?
Well, it would have been, we first of all have to understand that South Africa is a significant member of the regional body called the African Union. That would have sent a very wrong message to the other members of the African Union in relation to resolutions that were passed by the African Union, of which South Africa was a willing party. So one has to bear in mind that in establishing and ratifying the ICC treaty, South Africa was aware that the Rome Statute does not guarantee immunity to sitting heads of state. But on the other hand, South Africa also is part of the resolution of the African Union, which says that the African Union would have a non-cooperation stance with the ICC in relation to 7 heads of state. So the consequence would have been that South Africa would have been looked upon slightly poorly by its fellow member states within the ICC.
Well, based on what you're saying, it does sound like they made the right choice. But just before I let you go, come December of this year, South Africa will host the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation in Johannesburg. Just looking at how things have played out regarding the president of Sudan, do you think another invitation will be extended to President Bashir again?
Well, it will be. When these conferences are held, the AU, or the international body holding the conference, would seek to execute what we call a host country agreement with the hosting government. South Africa, being a member state of the AU, will have to then guarantee what we call the right of safe passage to all the delegates that attend such a conference. It will do that in its capacity as a member state of the African Union and the host country. So again, I expect to see a repeat of what happened in relation to the recently concluded summit, if President al-Bashir chooses to attend that function or event.
Dr. Charles Adeogun-Phillips, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Dr. Charles Adeogun-Phillips, former ICC prosecutor. Still to come on Network Africa. The Somalia president says rebel attacks do not necessarily mean resurgence. Details in just a moment.